Hey there, I'm Chris Benetti, host of the Smart Author podcast. In this episode, I speak with Bob Burg, and we discuss the foundational strategies Bob used to sell well over 1 million copies of his books. Some of the main topics we will be covering today include how you can create new opportunities for yourself after launching your book, the 3+ decade foundational strategies for selling more books and getting more business, and what you can do to take strides against other authors who are stagnant. At the end of this episode, please make sure you visit our website where you can find all the show notes plus all the links mentioned with Bob. And if you enjoy this episode, please make sure you subscribe so you are always the first to know when a new episode is released. And if you're struggling with book sales, head over to smartauthormedia.com/audit to get a free audit and a clear plan to get your book sales back on track. Now, let's head over to this awesome interview. Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Author podcast. Today, I'm joined by the legend himself, Mr. Bob Burg. Bob, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, Chris. Terrific to be with you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Bob, I would love if you could give everyone who doesn't yet know about you a bit of a 30, 60-second catch-up of everything that you've accomplished in the space.
Well, after beginning in broadcasting and graduating into sales, eventually I started teaching others what had worked for me. That kind of morphed into a speaking career. I wrote my first book, Endless Referrals, as a way to position myself better as a speaker, to get higher fees and more credibility, better positioning in the marketplace, so forth. Had a couple of other books after that, and then in late 2007, 2008, John David Mann and my business parable, the Go-Giver, was published. And, I've had a couple more books since then and so forth. We actually have a series of Go-Giver books. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. From there, I've taken the brand and expanded into other media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So did the brand itself then create offers around the books, especially in the Go-Giver series? Was that kind of like a launch pad for other things that your business was helping with?
Yeah, it really was. It allowed me to not only, the speaking business became different after that too, because before then, I would use the books I'd written as a positioning and marketing tool, but it was still a lot of outbound selling and then referrals and so forth. But it was still the way I got the bookings were from utilizing it as an outbound positioning tool. The Go-Giver opened up sort of a different world, and I credit John David Mann, my co-author, for that, because he's a great writer, and 3 of the 4 books in the series are parables. So without his writing, it would have just been another how-to book and so forth. And so from there, we started really getting calls from clients and so forth, and that kind of that's a lot nicer way to have a business, right? And from there, though, that I've developed with my business partner Kathy Tajanel a certified Go-Giver speaker program. We also have live events that we do, the Go-Giver Entrepreneurs Academy Beyond the Mastermind events, and Kathy and I developed the Go-Giver membership community. So we've taken that brand, if you will, and kind of built around it.
And I mean, so many people here listening do similar things with their books, or they have their core brand or core service to begin with, and then they write the book as like an amplifier for that.
And that's fine too. That's great. Yeah,
I think it's just such a smart way to go about building a business and building a really successful brand. And now the Go-Giver book itself and the series is well over 1 million copies at this stage, and so that must have been extremely successful for you being able to kind of amplify what you're doing in the back end as well.
Yeah, and we've never stopped promoting the Go-Giver. So that came out, I say the end of 2007, it was like December 27th or 28th, 2007. So really 2008. So I guess it's been about 14 years now. Well, even with the other books we've had out since then, both with John and by myself, I've still never stopped promoting the Go Giver. I still do a couple podcasts a day. And I'm always, writing on it. Everything we do is centered around something from the Go Giver. So we've never stopped promoting it. And I think that's a big thing. I think it's that consistency that has a lot to do with the success of any book.
So the Go Giver, would you say, is really like a core foundational timeless kind of book? You'd continue to promote it for the next 20 years, even with the content that you wrote inside?
Yeah, it's principle based, so it's pretty timeless. And again, John did such a wonderful job with the story aspect. So it has that emotional, I think stories, they really connect on a deeper heart level, if you will. So that makes it easy really to keep promoting. So yeah, well, I can continue to do that and probably will continue to promote that book for as long as I'm, around.
I love that. So, for the listeners here, would you recommend people go at writing a book like the Go Giver as like a core book almost because you've mentioned you've got several books, right? But Go Giver is still like the core thing, the thing that you will promote consistently for as long as you are around. Should other people think about their books in a similar fashion, or should they have a core book that they build up to like you did? What are your thoughts on that?
I really think it depends. With several of my books, they'd sold very well, and I was very fortunate in that regard. And that's a good thing to do when you have books that continue to sell, and some of them are going to be ones that attract others and attract programs and create programs, courses, everything that you can write about around them. But then, you might really kind of catch lightning, if you will, with one book, which we did with the Go Giver. And I'm not sure you can really predict that. You can think great thoughts and think, okay, the market's ready for it. We know it's a good book. It's going to hit, but you just don't know really when that's going to happen. When it does, yeah, I think you want to leverage that as much as you can, because obviously it's a message that has caught on, a message that's received well. And when you can take that, you can and build things around it. I think it's something that you grab onto and you do. But I really think it's just a matter of it's an individual type of choice based on what happens.
What do you think the foundational things that have stuck around in business that still apply today? Like, especially with having an author fronted business or a book fronted business, what are some of the foundational things that you have used for success?
So I'm just trying to think in what regard when you say, the different things that have stuck around in business, so forth.
Yes. Sorry. So generally you've been in business for 3 decades now, like a very long time. That's, I'm sure that there's things that were around in the 80s, the 90s.
Oh, sure.
What are some of the things that, you did back then that still work today?
Chris, I think it's still developing relationships with people. It's still out. One of my themes from my very first book, Endless Referrals, through the Go Giver books and everything I've written since, has been based on the core premise that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Right. And even, with social media, it's not they'll do business with and refer business to those computers they know, like, and trust. It's always the person. And the computers, the social media platforms, those are all means to an end. The end is creating those know, like, and trust relationships. Real authentic ones. And I don't think that is ever going to change. In fact, Jeff Colvin wrote a great book several years ago. He was the editor at large for Fortune magazine. He still might be. And it called Humans Are Underrated. And what his premise was that it used to be before, as technology was becoming more prevalent, the question was, what can humans do that machines can't do, right? Well, that's all changed, because there's pretty much nothing that humans can do that machines also can do. So it's not a matter of, what can humans, it's what can humans do that people will not accept from computers or robots or technology. He gives an example of, God forbid you have to tell someone that a loved one has died, after an operation. People do not want to hear that from a printout, right? From a robot, from a computer. It needs to be from a doctor. And it needs to be a doctor who has empathy and caring and kindness and thoughtfulness and tact and diplomacy. And you know what I'm saying? And as he said, as technology becomes even more prevalent, it can do even more things that humans cannot do, right? The most sought after people, the highest paying jobs are going to be to those people who have those people skills, leadership, collaboration, again, tact and empathy and the ability to collaborate and all those things. I really think it's been that way forever, and I think it's always going to be that way. The technology will always grow, we'll always have different, strategies, tactics, techniques, but the principles will remain the same, and that is, people connecting with other people.
How have you leveraged that connection and people-to-people relationships to build your businesses and sell your books over time?
Yeah, it's a great question. That is really how it's been done. It's through the relationships that I had before the book was out, and the people who wanted to get behind it because of the know, like, and trust relationships I had with them, and that John had with other people, because he also, he's very much an entrepreneur and had connected with a whole lot of people before. And so we had a good kind of team at the beginning to really help get the message out there. And then, I continued to, again, promote, do podcasts, and built relationships with people as I did them. As social media became more prevalent, I began building relationships there. So yeah, in answer to your question, really, it's all been about that. Now, for the book to continue to sell, for it to have legs, so to speak, it's got to be good content, and it's got to have be well written. Again, I give John the credit for his amazing writing abilities. I'm a how-to guy. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. So I'm actually rather boring. John's a great storyteller. So, so the book has to be good, or else all the relationships in the world aren't going to do anything. But you can have a great book, but if you've got nobody else out there promoting it, it could still sell. There could be just straight word of mouth people, but it's highly unlikely.
Do you find that's what has helped set aside your books from other people's books, the relationships you've built, the content that's in there? Is there anything else that you've found that, sets yourself, who's a wildly successful author, aside from someone who has a great book but isn't selling many copies?
I think the ability to get it out there in the marketplace is a big thing. So, as you know, because you work with authors all the time, many of them kind of think that once they've got the book written and published, that their job is done. No, it's just right. Exactly. No, it's just beginning. And so, you've got to be willing to go out there and promote it. Now, I think what's important to do is to find the methods to promote it that you enjoy. Right? Because if you enjoy them, you're going to do them. You don't have to do, it's like the old Bruce Lee quote about I don't fear the person who's practiced 1,000 kicks one time. I fear the person who's practiced one kick 1,000 times, right? Get good at 2 or 3 or 4 methods or 5 methods of promoting, and do that, and just do it consistently, and make sure they're things you enjoy, you feel comfortable doing, that you really shine when you do it. Then you'll continue to do it.
It's funny. So my mentor talks to me about doing reps, and what are the reps that are going to lead to success, and what are the reps that you love doing,
exactly.
Right? And we wouldn't go to the gym one time and expect to be like
Exactly.
buff after one session. But if you learn to enjoy it and you do the things that you do enjoy at the gym, then you're going to wake up like I did this morning at 3 a.m. because you have 2 podcasts. And you're going to make sure you go to the gym because you love doing it and you love the results that it can achieve over time with the repetitions that come with it. So I love that. What opportunities do you think have come from, you being an author? Like, you obviously published your first book was it early 2000s or in the late 90s?
No, it was in the 90s. I'm
90s?
old. I'm yeah, long in the tooth, as they say.
So after you initially published your first book, did you find that you had a world of opportunities open up for you, or did it take some time? Did it take multiple publishings?
No, I utilized that first book because I used it in an outbound fashion. I made the opportunities. So, so before the book was out, I would make my calls. I had my list. Back then it was not on computer. It was, you had the state regional association directories, national trade professional association directories, corporate direct. You hadn't just, you dialed, you called, you qualify, you found the decision maker, you qualified. No, and there were a lot of calls to get to that point and a lot of no's in between. But you'd send, you'd qualify and send information. I would publish articles in their trade magazines so that I could use those as positioning tools. And whenever I got some kind of booking anywhere, I'd make sure to send it. I was just always, promoting. And then when the book came out, when Endless Referrals came out, then when I called, I could say, are you familiar with the book Endless Referrals? And, first of all, of course, it would be a market that Endless Referrals was something that would be desirable to them, right? So when I'd say that what I do is I teach companies and individuals how to cultivate a network of endless referrals business. In fact, are you familiar yet with my book, Endless Referrals, that just came out recently? No, I'm not. Oh, well, I'd love to send you one if it's something that you would like. And so if they got the book and they read it and they liked it, well, there was a good chance they were going to have me in. If they didn't like it, I wasn't the right person for them anyway. But that's how I utilize the book. And so, so once I started getting these bookings, now referrals are kind of my strength. And so I could work within those markets and then develop referrals from there. But the book gave me that opportunity. It was really my calling card, if you would. It gave me that opportunity to say, yes, this is a person who knows something, who can add some value to you. And look, he's even published. So that must mean something, which, it doesn't, but it does, in terms of how it's, and so, so it opened up a whole world of opportunity. It was just a world of opportunity I had to kind of dig through.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So I'm a 94 kid. So this is really interesting for me to hear, because obviously, like, I was born right when the internet was coming around.
Was coming out. You were born when I had jet black hair, like you have. In fact, on the Endless Referrals book, and people who have the old copy they'll send me a picture and tease me about it. My hair was as dark as yours, and it shows me a picture, holding a telephone, and it says Endless Referrals, right? And now the hair is, 64-year-old hair. So.
No, this is so fun to hear. It's interesting just because, and you're totally right. Like, you create the opportunities for yourself, right? Like, you can't expect to become an author and have success because you're an author. It's like, that's just it's a little bit ambiguous right there.
It gets you into the game. Being an author gets you into the game.
Yeah. So, and I could imagine back then that being an author was actually something that was quite special. It's still special today, absolutely. And it's not an easy feat, but especially back then with all the complications of, we've got systems and opportunities, right, and like tools, and like there's a thing for everything today. And you can make one phone call and have a book published, tomorrow. And so, like, I could just imagine the amount of work that would have went into it, and how impressed people would have been back then.
Well, the funny thing is back in the early, 94, I guess, so mid-90s, in the book Endless Referrals, and the subtitle was Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. So it was basically about business networking, right? There were like 3 books on business networking. Mine was one of them. Right now there are, hundreds, and I've read many of them, and they're all wonderful. But back then there were about 3. So yeah, it was a different game.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like, the people you're speaking to didn't have one of the other 2 as well. So it's like, Bob's the only solution.
Right.
Oh. Oh, that's so. One of my other guests, his name's Rowan. He actually in 2010ish went through and published his first book at 21. And it's just interesting hearing you say you went through the process of creating those opportunities for yourself, because his story is actually very similar, obviously, but a couple of decades after, where he had to go through the process of like, okay, now I've got this book. How do I create the speaking opportunities? He's in the tutoring and teaching space. And so like, how do I connect with the schools, the universities, et cetera, to go ahead and get my book out there, to get copies in the hands of the people who are, my ideal audience. And it's just, it's cool hearing that dynamic, because that I feel like that's one of the foundational things. Like, you have to do the work in the ways that make sense to go ahead and get the people who you want to listen to the book to actually get their hands on the book, or not that's listen right. to read, sorry, or listen these days. But it's up to you to go ahead and do that work to create the opportunities for yourself.
It is. You hit it right on the head. That's exactly it. And you've got to recognize that you are selling your services, you're selling the idea, and you're going to get a lot of no's, and that's okay. It's okay. It's just part of it. Doesn't mean it's fun to get the no's. None of us like that. But like anything else, you go through a lot of no's in order to get the yeses. Once that happens and you keep working at it, then you don't get discouraged as much by the no's, because you're closer to a yes. I've often said that with people who get into either a business or they're doing something where sales is involved, and they're talking to a lot of people, I often say it's not the no's that and the people who quit early, who don't, and people who could have really been successful, but they ended up quitting. It's not the no's that caused them to quit. It's thinking that they're the only ones having to go through all those no's that causes them to quit. Okay, because what happens is we all see other people's successes. Okay, we see them walking across the stage, or we see the great photos of them, the successful photo. Mark Sanborn, a great speaker who wrote The Fred Factor and a number of other wonderful books, he once said, we look at other people's highlight reels and we look at our own blooper tapes. And I think that's, so when we get told no, well, we're the only one getting these no's. All these people who are successful, all they got was yeses. That's not true at all. That's not true at all. For the Go Giver, we got turned down 24 times by publishers before the 25th one said yes. And it sold over 1 million copies. Look at Chicken Soup for the Soul. They got turned down. Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield apparently got turned down by 150 publishing houses. And it's gone on to sell, over 500 million copies in their entire series. So the no's are part of it. And as an author, you're going to get no's from agents about representing you. You're going to get no's from the publishers who you'd like to publish you. You're going to get no's from the podcasts you reach out to and the people who you ask to do blurbs for the book, and the people who would hire you for speaking. It's just the way it is. But if we can accept that, and again, we don't have to enjoy it, we don't have to like it, but if we can accept that that's just part of the business, then we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. Now, what you teach helps us to be able to navigate this a lot easier. It's using a system. What is a system? Well, I define it as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles, the key being predictability. So if it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired result of B, then all you need to do is A and keep doing A and keep doing A, and eventually you'll get the desired result of B.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's so prevalent today, especially with the social media and all of the world of comparisonitis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you were to launch a book again today, would you follow the same steps that you have done in the past, or would you do it differently? What would you recommend someone do if they are about to launch their book?
It's a good question. I've thought about it, and I'm not totally sure. I mean, principle based, I do a lot of the same things. I'd reach out to a lot of my connections. I'd offer to send them a pre-published copy of the book, a galley copy of the book, just so they could read it and see if it was something they wanted to get behind. And by the way, when I ask people to help to promote a book, I always make sure to give them the out or back door, because people are busy. People get asked these things all the time. I always let them know, hey, we're all busy. If you don't have the time to read it, or what have you, if it's something where you don't feel comfortable promoting it, you've got other stuff going on, please know I will totally understand. Because I think people appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
And but I reach out to a lot of people. And again, it's based on relationships I've developed. And because now my social media presence is pretty big, I can put an announcement out there about that to let people know, and so forth. And so, you kind of do bring together a team. I don't think that you have to have this amazing launch. I know launches are popular, and we did that for the Go Giver, but back then, again, there weren't as many of those. So it wasn't like there was always launch. I think it's a great idea because momentum's always good. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Passive action is good, right? To get it started. But I think the biggest thing in selling a book is consistency. Do those things that that you're gonna do and that have proven to be effective, and just do them and keep doing them and keep doing them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so funny you say that, because that's kind of what my business model is based around, consistently selling books for authors. And I kind of make the joke that my business is kind of the boring one. I'm not here to do the shiny launches and all of that. I want to show up and help you make sales more consistently for as long as we want to work together. And it's like, it's funny because I can joke on that, because especially again in today, and with all the marketing gurus out there, and the communities that we're surrounded by, everyone's so big on like, what's the campaign that I can do, or what's the launch I can do, like what's the shiny thing I can do to achieve X. And it's those things are awesome, and they make good money for a lot of people.
Sure.
They're very stressful though, and they're not very consistent. You have to do more of them, more and more.
Exactly. Yeah, I think doing the right things, doing them consistently, that's kind of the formula that's gonna, if you're if you have a book, you're probably really passionate about sharing the message. So you're going to want to be out there sharing it. It's not something that's going to feel like work, although it doesn't mean everything about it is fun and unicorns and rainbows and everything. But again, if you're passionate about what you've written about and how it can bring value to the readers, you're going to love being out there discussing it.
And you've written a book as well. Like there's content there for ages. Like you can riff on that content for years.
Absolutely.
Years and years and years. Like and you can pre-frame it, you can expand on it. There's so much opportunity for you to
everything.
Yeah. Sure. Opportunity for days when you've done the hard work already.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a good part of it. Once you do have that, that's your foundation.
Well, Bob, it's been absolutely awesome interviewing you today. Thank you for the generous time. Is there anywhere where I can send people to get to know a little bit more about you?
Yeah, probably the best place is my website, which is burg.com. And they can also visit our Go Giver membership community, which is thegogivercommunity.com.
Awesome. I'll make sure that's linked up in the show notes for everyone, so it's nice and easy for you to get there as well. Thanks again, Bob. It's been awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you. And thanks for all you're doing.
Damn, what an awesome episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing on your podcast platform of choice so you get notified every single time a new episode releases. And if you're struggling with your book sales, head over to smartauthormedia.com/audit to get a free audit of your book sales, to see where we can help you bridge the gap between not many sales to a lot of sales. It's a free resource call that we have together where I give you some clear action steps that you can take to take your stuff from broken to selling. I'll see you over there. Thanks again for listening.